Why is it so hard to help the most severely mentally ill people who are homeless on our sidewalks move from that place into a safer place?
How do you build a pipeline for African American leadership in Los Angeles?
How do we maintain tradition and at the same time present it and produce it in a contemporary manner?
Can the city re-engage this large population of young people who are disconnected?
How do we create awareness around the issue of male sexual abuse and assault, an issue that A, people don't know exists, or B, people choose to ignore?
The big question was how we could take something like the huge build out in our transportation infrastructure in Los Angeles and use the purchasing to rebuild kind of an industrial economy for people of color and women, bringing back manufacturing, but in a powerful, empowering way.
The Durfee Foundation Stanton Fellowship is a 2-year fellowship for people in government, nonprofits, and social sector businesses in Los Angeles to be able to pursue an inquiry. So this will be something that has a lot of possibility around it and doesn't presuppose what the answer is at the outset.
It's another classic case with our top 14 stories is that they'll release somebody and they never call anyone to say, hey, we're letting this guy back out, even though there's like a whole village surrounding him. So we had created in Hollywood in 2013 this list, we called it the top 14. And they were the most severely mentally ill people left on the street that we were going to, as a group, work on trying to, one by one, move them off the street. And through that process, we could begin to see the systemic dysfunction in our mental health system. I needed the time and the bandwidth and the resources to try to figure this out.
People who work in the social sector are going at 100 miles an hour all the time and have their nose to the grindstone and very rarely have the opportunity to look up and see blue sky and to think about where the solution to a problem might really lie. Consequently, we all spend a lot of time in quick fixes for problems that are actually very deep and complex.
Change the belief system of our young people. They'll believe that they could be somebody that they want to be.
It was identified that the city had approximately 500,000 young people between the ages of 16 to 24. 92,000 of them were not in school and not in work, and a vast majority of them were high school dropouts. So we did have a problem. The biggest obstacle is people not believing that the public sector can lead on solving big problems.
It's really hard to go from I'm fighting for a living wage, I'm fighting for a community benefits agreement for this project in downtown Los Angeles, to how do we change industrial policy for this country? I had this initial fear of like, what am I doing? What am I setting myself out to do? I wanted to give myself the chance to absorb history, to think about other countries, to kind of get out of my comfort zone, to think big.
And I knew that it was the kind of inquiry that needed time to apply the scientific method. I knew I needed to go around the country to meet with people, and this fellowship helped facilitate that.
And at some point, I think maybe in the first half of the first year, I was like overwhelmed and thought, why did I take this on? This is so complicated. And everyone I talked to said, oh, that's a complicated issue you're tackling. Good luck with that.
You know, the problems that we're talking about, the challenges in the community which are reflections of the challenges in the world, they're not going to be solved in a really quick time frame with a really easy solution.
Happy to be in New York in Times Square. Every 8 minutes, the billboard behind me will show faces of celebrities and athletes talking about the issue of childhood sexual abuse, specifically men who are abused as children, creating awareness about an issue in our country very seldom talked about. The Stanton Fellowship allowed us the opportunity to do research on a topic that up to this point has not been deeply researched. We did a lot of data collection specific to other social movements that had gone before us. Then what we did was we identified it back to the individuals who were leaders in the fields that we did research about, and we asked for interviews to talk about those things that were important and salient moments for them.
I'm a fourth generation Japanese American. My great-grandparents came at the turn of the century to the United States. And so with World War II and my family being incarcerated in the concentration camps, there was a lot of loss of culture. And so this fellowship helped me to spend time in a really meaningful way in Japan. I went to Kyoto to learn from master artists and craftsmen.
As you get into your inquiry, you talk to one person, and out of that conversation, you realize there are 3 other people you really need to talk to. And you go talk to one of them, and there's 3 more people you need to talk to. And so your project sort of balloons and contracts.
It's important for leaders to pursue a hypothesis rather than specific outcomes because it opens them up.
Over and over, they would say, don't settle on anything yet, go places. Or I would say, go places. And I put myself out there to do speeches. As I was moving through and then testing what I was learning, articulating it, it was helping me to find my voice. That was pretty exciting. With my fellowship in hand, I wanted to understand how it was that we came to this place in America.
We had been running student recovery programs in the city for a number of years, but they were individualized type programs. Different agencies, different bureaucracies, different funding streams were all, in essence, trying to do the same thing, but with different approaches. But for me to walk into the school district and say, hey, I have the Stanton Fellowship and I'm addressing this particular problem, how can we work together? It just opened those doors for me. And the fellowship really did allow me to overcome my own personal fear of failing in putting a program like this together.
When I met with the 16th generation landscape designer in Kyoto, he cares for landscapes that his ancestors created. It's not so much about the exact recreation of what his ancestors created, but it's about recreating that feeling, the essence, the values that his ancestors were trying to put forth. And that really helped shift my thinking in terms of what I'm doing here at the JACCC. We're not trying to recreate Japan. I'm not trying to recreate Kyoto, but what is that feeling? What is the essence of those Japanese values that we're trying to put forth to a contemporary, diverse Los Angeles? Eventually, I found my way to a city in Italy, Trieste. It is one of the preeminent places in the world where people with mental illness are actually cared for in the community. So I thought, what if I could get more people to go from LA to see this also? I identified 12 people from Los Angeles, including the head of our Department of Mental Health, the head of our mental health court, people associated with the LA County Sheriff's Department, and et cetera, all the way down the line. We visited the Central Hospital in Trieste. There are 6 psychiatric beds for a city of 250,000 people, and when we were there, only 2 of them were full. Now that you've seen what's possible in Trieste, you cannot deny that something has to change in Los Angeles.
People apply to the Stanton for an opportunity to take a deep dive in an issue in which they're very committed. But at the other end of the 2-year process, they say that the greater gain for them has been to develop a collegial network of knowledge and connections that continue to surround them as they move forward.
The Stanton Fellowship makes Los Angeles better because it connects leaders. And it builds a community of leaders in a very, very purposeful and mechanical way to begin with. And then sort of something organic comes out of that.
I've seen this happen with so many leaders in Los Angeles that the Stanton Fellowship was a turning point in their thinking and in their practice.
And we know that our Stanton Fellows, like David and Goliath, it's one individual up against a big problem. We don't expect them to solve the problem in 2 years. The most important thing is that they share what they've learned so that others can pick up where they've left off or can join them in the journey. That success for the Stanton Fellowship is collective knowledge, collective wisdom, and a community moving forward toward solutions.